Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Better Basics Podcast, the least pretentious fitness podcast on the planet. I am Matt Stone, and as always, I have with me my best friend and co-host. It's Dylan Waldhuter. Dylan, great to see you as always, my friend. It is now the weekend after the week after a big weekend for you, Masters weekend, and I actually, you're the dimple head of the two of us. And so, I follow golf, but I'm not really a big Rory guy, but I know he's polarizing. So were you happy this weekend or sad?
I didn't know that another man who I do not know could have such an emotional impact on my life.
Okay.
I'm a Rory man. I'm a big fan of Rory.
All right.
I guess he's a bit polarizing. I think people generally are supportive of him. I don't think he's maybe as polarizing as like a Bryson DeChambeau.
Right.
But man, dude, I've been on cloud nine since Sunday. I have watched his highlights in that final putt 15 times. To see a grown man, and for those that don't know, and maybe even you, Rory was a child prodigy. He was Tiger 2.0. Kid from Northern Ireland. His parents were not wealthy. He's not a country club kid. His parents worked 2 jobs so that their prodigy son could pursue the game of golf. There was a story that came out post-Masters that his mom and dad didn't see each other for a lot of his childhood because his dad would work 100-hour weeks, 2 shifts, and then when he got home at night, his mom would go to work. And so they really sacrificed a lot for him, and he worked really, really hard, and he came into the game, and he blew up immediately. He won 3 majors in like the first 3 years of his career. And 2014, I believe, was his last major championship, and since then, he's been in pursuit of the Grand Slam, meaning winning all 4 major championships. And there have only been 5 golfers in the history of the game that have ever achieved that goal. So he starts going to the Masters, Augusta. This is the last major championship he needs. And for 11 years, every year he goes there, the main story is Rory going to achieve the Grand Slam? And every year he comes up short. And in 2011, he blew it. In 2014, he blew it. Like he had
I think that's the important thing. Yeah,
like,
right. Like you're saying, he's blown them. It's not that he just has not pulled through. He's had many an opportunity and has
flat out blown them. Yes.
Yeah, blown them.
And he's sort of had a big dip in his career and has been fighting his way back. It's just such a cool story of resiliency. And what I loved, if you haven't seen it, even if you're not a golf fan or a fan of sport, watch him make the winning putt and watch his reaction because it is so human. It's just relief, it's joy, you can just see this burden being lifted off of his shoulders and the resiliency that he displayed to go through all those trials and tribulations and ultimately come out on top, even to the point of missing a short putt for par on 18 to win, then going to a playoff and winning in the playoff on the next hole. Just you couldn't script a better story. And he was, what I really appreciated, the reason I think I keep going back and watching it is he's so honest about it all. He's very honest about how much it burdened him, how nervous he was on the first tee, how nervous he was throughout the day, and how he had to battle that and overcome it. Man, I've just been obsessed with it. I think it's just such a cool story, and I'm really, I don't know him, but man, I'm like proud of him. I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Tiger Woods fan, grew up in that era, but haven't really paid like serious attention to professional golf since then. Anytime that Tiger's playing, I love it. I think Scottie Scheffler's been really fun to watch, but Rory was one of those guys that I don't have a ton of memories of, except for, I don't remember what year it was, but the year that he won the U.S. Open and his dad was there, because it's always on Father's Day weekend, and he won the U.S. Open, and I can't remember if that was his first major or it was a really significant day for him with his dad there, and I remember like just being really stoked for him at that point. And I mean, it's really cool to see. And yeah, I think it was an awesome display of resilience and just being able to overcome the demons that are so relatable. And that's the interesting thing about golf. I think that's the reason why a lot of people are drawn to it, is because you can watch the best players in the world struggle with the same thing that you do, and that is that space in between, in between your ears.
Yeah, dude, I was texting with some buddies on Sunday while we were watching the round, and it felt like It was so Bryson and Rory are in the last group. It felt like
Mm-hmm.
Bryson was playing Rory, but Rory was playing Rory and Bryson. Like you could just feel the magnitude of it and the pressure of it. And some of the shots he hit were so inexplicably bad. Like he probably hit three or four of the worst golf shots of his career. He also probably hit 2 to 4 of the best shots that Augusta National Golf Course has ever seen. And it was just this roller coaster of a day. And he was very transparent in his press conference about those nerves, about that battle, that mental battle. And that, I think you're right, is why golf is so relatable, because it's not really a game against anybody else. It's sort of a game of you against the course, but ultimately it's a game of you against what you said, what's going on in between your ears. And every time you go out there, you're battling that. And those that are good at golf figure out ways to manage that. And those that are 18 handicaps and prefer to get drunk out on the golf course either don't care a ton or really struggle with their relationship to the game and what it tells them maybe about themselves sometimes.
I liked the video that you sent. It was a video on Twitter, or X, the everything app, of Rory. He was doing an interview basically in a golf cart where he was saying that he takes 20 grams of creatine a day. Now, I remember Rory, actually, that U.S. Open, I remember he was like one of the first golfers to like lift weights. And this is actually really apropos to the topic. We'll get to our main course later. But he was the first guy that I remember like talking about his training program and actually like lifting weights and using the cable machines, like doing a bunch of cool stuff. But he had a video. I'm assuming that was recent. Do you know when the one that you sent me was taken?
Yeah, that was from Sam sent me that link, and they did like a night golf event. It was in the off season. It might have been a year or two ago, and he was in a cart with Scotty Scheffler, and they have little Bluetooth earpieces in so that the commentators can talk with them during the round. It's more of a casual round of golf. And he was shooting the shit with Scotty. He was just talking about the creatine he takes, and the commentators are listening to him, trying to kind of discern what it is he's talking about, and ultimately got to ask him, and he was talking about creatine.
Yeah, and
So it's pretty cool.
he takes 10 grams before he works out, then 10 at any other point during the day. And the part that I thought was interesting was, basically like him saying some of the stuff that you and I know, and hopefully we, have taught our listeners about. But if not, here you go again. The best thing about creatine is that it is the most studied supplement on the planet. And the thing that's really great about it is there doesn't seem to be issues with taking too much of it. In fact, every study that comes out, it seems like the more you take, the better it is for you if you can handle it. And I mean, I've tried taking 10 or more grams of creatine a day, and I have to space it out. I have to do 5 in the morning and 5 at night, because otherwise it does mess with my gut. But I mean, yeah, like other than that, the more you can handle, the better it seems for lots of things.
Yeah, I think there was one big meta-analysis that said it's safe up to 30 grams a day.
Which
But I
is a
haven't heard
shitload.
of anybody taking any more than that. And I don't know that they've proven that more than that is bad for you. But what's interesting about these higher dosages is a lot of the prevailing research on creatine is looking at its impacts on performance, muscular recovery, the ability to go a bit further, faster, harder in your workout, which Rory references. But These higher doses are what get to the brain saturation and are starting to provide more of these mental benefits. So that first 5 grams that people are typically recommended are really good for muscle saturation, which leads to those muscle and performance benefits. But these higher doses that Rory's taking, that other people are taking, are where you start to get that brain saturation and some of these cognitive benefits that are being studied more and more now.
All right, let's do it. All right, people, here we go. So this is something that has been working around in my brain since this morning, and I texted it over to Dylan and see if we could flesh it out into our hot topic today. So for all of the fans of the new Netflix show, or not, the new season of Black Mirror just dropped on Netflix, and Black Mirror is a wild show. It's like sci-fi. It's all the episodes are individual standalone, so there's no continuing plot, but they all explore really intense themes, usually about the future and like this dystopian society. But Dylan, we talked a little bit beforehand. You watched one episode of Black Mirror.
I've maybe seen a couple, but it was like too much for me. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the show. Just too much.
It's intense. And as I said before the show, I think that your response is really logical. What is interesting is how many people are obsessed with this type of content. So I thought it was, it's an important conversation to have about how why we like this type of content, but then also why we need to just be mindful of our consumption. So why we like it is pretty simple. It's exciting stuff. It's really novel, but on a physiological level, we know that these types of things release a lot of different chemicals in our bodies. Dopamine, it spikes cortisol. It can raise adrenaline. There was even some research that indicates that these types of like murder mystery type shows can release like a boost of oxytocin, which is that connection hormone. But it has all of these really interesting like physiological effects on our bodies. So it's no kidding that we're attracted to it. But it's interesting when you look at what these things actually do to us long term.
Yeah, man, it's Netflix. Like Netflix is incentivized to get people to subscribe and to watch as much Netflix as possible. So they know like what type of content is going to stimulate exactly the types of things that you're talking about, because those things are addictive. They're things that keep us fixated on the content such that we continue to watch it again and again and again and binge TV. But it's kind of like the news. It's like it's increasing our stress. It's giving us more anxiety. It's desensitizing us to the themes and topics maybe that they're sharing sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel this myself, not only when I sometimes we'll have the news on, but even other shows from a similar vein as like a Black Mirror. I recently was watching Dope Thief, this new show on Apple TV. Same sort of reaction, like really captivating. Draws you in, you want to keep watching it, but you finish watching it and you don't feel very good about yourself, and you go up to bed and you have a harder time going to sleep. And we consume so much of this content now, and it's designed for us to consume it. It's a lot like hyperpalatable food, right? Like it's there, it's available, and it's captivating and easy to overconsume. But then we oftentimes wonder why we have a stomach ache, or we wonder why we're stressed out or have anxiety. And a lot of times it's what we're choosing to eat or what we're choosing to absorb through content. So yeah. I think it's an important conversation.
Right. If you are watching 3 hours of Black Mirror and then trying to go to bed, no kidding, you're going to have a skewed outlook on the world, or your dreams are going to be messed up. I mean, these things, they really do have actual impacts on us. And so, I think it's just something I know, like one of the things that I've done with shows like this is always making sure, if I'm going to watch it before bed, making sure that I have like a palate cleanser after, whether it's
Yeah.
like budgeting time for like a Parks and Rec, or whatever it is, just something silly and just enjoyable that you can kind of like just come down off of it. But I think that, yeah, it's just one of those things that you have to treat it like what it is. And it's that junk food. It's one of those things. It's meant to suck you in, and it's meant to make you feel all these things, because then it leaves you wanting more.
Yeah, if you're one of those people that is consuming 12 hours of serial killer podcasts every week, and then you come home after work every day and you're looking a little sideways at your husband,
Yeah.
like the
Right.
stuff starts to add up, dude. And it's been studied too. Like there's studies that show exposure to some of this dark or sensationalized content can, to your point, increase cortisol, have some negative emotional arousal. It's not really very good for us. So we do have to consume it intentionally, and we have to consume it in moderation. We've talked a lot about dopamine, right? Like how this stuff is essentially digital dopamine, and spikes it while we're consuming it. But in the interest of equilibrium in our brains, we end up actually feeling a lot worse later on. So we just have to be really conscious. We talk a lot about physical health on this podcast, but we have to be really conscious of the things we're consuming for our mentals as well, just like the physical ones. If you're eating junk food before you go to bed, your stomach's not going to feel so good. If you're feeding your brain Black Mirror and murder podcasts and horror films and fear before you go to bed, you're not going to have a very good time sleeping. You're going to be more stressed out the next day. So this is another thing that we're consuming that we have to be conscious of.
Let's transition to Worth It, the viral exercise edition. This week we are talking about the 3-2-1 method. Dylan, this is one of those kind of just like, in quotation marks, revolutionary ways to train your body, and in 6 weeks you're going to be a completely different person, right?
Yeah, exactly. I love this one because it's duh, I guess, would be like
Yeah.
I saw this going around the internet, and a lot of the clips were like, this is the ultimate workout methodology to achieve a lifelong fitness habit and health. And for those that don't know, the 3-2-1 method recommends 3 days of strength training, 2 days of low intensity exercise like a yoga, mobility, Pilates, and 1 day of cardio a week. So effectively what it's prescribing is
Mind blowing.
to lift some weights, to make sure you're doing some things for your body's, mobility and flexibility health, and to ensure that your heart health is up to par with some cardiovascular exercise.
Yeah, Dylan, these people they got their hands on a copy of Basic Muscle and looked at it and were like, these guys are fucking geniuses.
Yeah,
Like, who would have thought? 3 days of strength training, 2 days of low impact stuff, and then 1 day of cardio. It's funny because it's one of those like things that go viral, and of course for us it's like a no doy, but I mean, for a lot of people, that is one of those things where it's like, this is actually good information.
Yeah.
We're ragging on it, but if you do this, it's going to be awesome. It's a good balance of strength. You're making sure that you are going to recover properly. It's good for your heart. It's a pretty easy thing to remember, so adherence for something like this is going to be relatively high. But the thing that I really like about it more than anything is just like using it as a template, that 3-2-1 concept. And then based on where you're at with your training, you can plug and play. It doesn't always have to be three strength training, two, like low intensity, and then one cardio. If you're training for a half marathon, you're probably doing, you're doing 3+ of cardio, and then you do your 2 days of strength training and your 1 of mobility, or whatever it is. But it's just one of those things where if on a weekly basis you are doing those 3 different things in this, in this scale, it's going to have benefit for you.
Yeah, if people are seeing and pursuing this, it's going to be better than 90% of the bullshit that you see on the internet. So this is actually a good one. It's simple, and we're joking about it, to your point, but this is a good idea. Like, this is a great, to your point, framework to follow. I will say that for regular busy people, it's maybe even more than you need to be doing, right? Like, this is 6 days a week of intentional exercise. If you're just looking for the, the 20% that's going to get you the 80% of the results, you can probably get away with like a 2-1-1 sort of a deal. 2 days
Sure.
of strength training, day of focused on mobility, day focused on cardio. So it's good, but and you'd get a lot of benefit from pursuing something like this. But my fear is people see this, they get hung up on the prescriptive nature of it, they pursue it, they end up doing something like more like a 2-1-1. They feel like they've failed and they fall off the wagon altogether.
Yeah, so exactly. So worth it, absolutely. It's just don't treat it like gospel. You
Yeah.
got to adjust it for you, and anything is always better than nothing. All right, let's move on to the main course. Today, we opened up with Masters Talk. We're going to get back onto the golf course here because we are talking about our favorite exercises to improve your golf game and, for my fans on the podcast, your pickleball game as well.
And life, man. Like this
That's
stuff,
right.
This stuff applies to so much stuff. So golf gets this bad rap. Like, it's this gentle sport. You'll hear, is golf a hobby or is it a sport? It's a sport. It's rotational power,
Yes.
it's balance. It's just wrapped up in a pair of khakis. So we're going to talk about how to actually train to kick ass at golf. We're going to talk about how this stuff applies to things like pickleball and other sports. But a lot of this applies to life in general. It's going to help you move better, feel stronger, stay mobile, not blow out your back getting out of the damn car. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We'll talk about rotation and anti-rotation. Picking up your kid and twisting, that's rotation. Shoveling snow, raking leaves, vacuuming even, all rotational. Learning how to resist motion is a big part of the golf game. And that's really important for protecting the spine, for things like lifting groceries, twisting in and out of your car, bending over without tweaking something, sneezing and not tweaking your back. So there's going to be a lot in this. It's an episode about how to improve your golf game, how to improve your pickleball game. But even if you're not a golfer or a pickleball player, you can apply everything we're about to talk about here to be a healthier, stronger, younger version of yourself.
Yeah, I think the place to start is talking about why training. I mean, so and we'll you're right. It's about life specifically. I mean, in general, but when we specifically think about these sports, I mean, we'll focus a little bit more on golf, and then we'll talk about some of like the pickleball add-ons at the end. But I think it's important to have a honest conversation about why this actually matters. So you already mentioned the rotational power, the core control, rotation and anti-rotation. But it's the balance and stability. It's so things like single leg exercises. We think about not just strength but also mobility. There's a lot of different stuff that goes in here when we think about building a good program to improve somebody's golf game. I mean, these are all just like really, really good skills for a body that ages gracefully and is able to stay doing all the things that it loves to do. These are just going to be pillar things anyways.
Yeah, there's I play a lot of golf, and there's 2 types of golfers I see on the golf course that each category of person I could give one tip to totally transform their game. One, you've got like the weekend warrior golfer who spends their entire week at a cubicle and they have limited to no hip mobility and T-spine mobility, which are both critically important for the golf game. So for that person, if they just started doing more hip mobility, 90-90 stuff, T-spine mobility, windmill type stuff, they would totally transform their golf game.
Dylan, I'll take it even one step, before that. If they just, did the Pomodoro technique and every 25 minutes at their desk
Yes.
stood up and walked around for
Probably-
5 minutes,
probably true.
even that
True as well.
would be massive. But you're right, taking it to the next level with some actual, like mobility based stuff is going to be, is going to take it even to the next level for them.
Yeah. The other guy you see on the golf course all the time is the former college athlete, the really strong guy who can bench 315 and deadlift 500 pounds, but hits a weak little slice off to the right off the tee. And they're constantly asking themselves, I am so strong. Why can't I hit the golf ball very far? And in those cases, the prescription I would give them is you have a whole bunch of muscle you don't know how to use. And they spend a lot of time focused on compound lifts, getting really strong, but they spend no time training fast twitch muscle and figuring out how to use that muscle that they've built. So we'll talk more about those two key themes, but it is a different way of training. I think a lot of it ultimately does boil down to, and I get this way because I'll have to kind of reframe my training when the weather gets warmer and I'm playing more golf, because I'm the person who likes to do that compound lifting and likes to train more for hypertrophy. But if I do that, I'm not really focused on the things that are going to be of benefit to my golf game when I play 2 to 3 times a week. And it really boils down to building the muscle and then doing what you need to do to exercise it, to use it, to make it benefit you on the golf course.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about some of like the specific exercises that people can do to improve, their games and just like to feel better. Because that's the bonus with this is, you do this stuff and it's going to be less back pain, fewer just tweaks, like you said, getting the baby out of the bathtub, and just better range of motion overall. But, I think the best way to do it is probably to break it down into different categories. So we've said this one more or less already, but like in the rotation and power category, I think this is a really good opportunity to bust out that landmine that you were using in your home gym in our last episode. Things like landmine rotations, I think are, or like some people might call them like bus drivers. But, just anything where you're moving that landmine from hip to hip is a killer like core oblique exercise. But because you can actually load it pretty well with that landmine, you can hit, as many muscle groups as you can think of, really.
Yeah. Most training programs, you're going to be working bilateral compound movement type stuff, like I said before. Very rarely does a standard training program that's going to be more focused on strength and hypertrophy than rotation and power going to include rotational movements and power focus movements. So, like I said, I sort of start to think about this seasonally, where it's cold out, I'm going to build the muscle, I'm going to get strong. Starts to warm up, I'm going to look to more of this rotational type strength and these power focused movements to learn to use that muscle better. And so instead of a barbell back squat, I'm going to do jump squats or box jumps, where I'm going to use that strength that I've earned through building up that back squat. And I'm not saying you shouldn't back squat during golf season, but complementing it with some of these more power focused squat movements is going to be really beneficial to leveraging and using that strength that you've built. So you want to think like fast and clean, not like heavy and grindy like you traditionally do when you're lifting weights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I guess that like kind of blends itself with another category, which is that fast twitch muscle, which you kind of mentioned already too. So for people, we don't need to go like too deep into the anatomy, but essentially there are two main types of muscle fibers. There's your slow twitch fibers, which is, your endurance, stability. That's those muscle fibers use oxygen. That's whereas your fast twitch fibers are for speed, explosiveness. Those ones, the ATP system, they don't need oxygen to fire. So those are the ones when you need quick bursts, those are the muscles that you're using. Now, as you start to get older, and train less, those fast twitch fibers, don't have as many of them. So if you used to be an athlete, if you used to play basketball or football or run track or baseball, whatever it was, or just golf more regularly, if you were a more active person and you have since stopped, those fast twitch muscle fibers, you need to rebuild those. And you can, but that's why it's important to do two things: to lift heavy weights, but then also to do explosive exercises like you talked about, your med ball slams, your box jumps, jump squats, pairing them with those heavy compound movements so that you can build up those fast twitch fibers, because those are the muscles that are going to dominate your golf swing.
Yeah, there was a period of time a couple years ago where Bryson DeChambeau got way buff. So buff. He like constantly had a protein shake on him. He started to look like the Incredible Hulk. And it actually ended up having a negative kind of impact on his overall golf game. And he's leaned out quite a bit since. He's still kind of an athletic anomaly in golf. He's very big. He's a strong guy. And Rory, similarly, these guys are kind of anomalies in the game of golf. You'll see a lot of these other guys look like they just got out of the accounting cubicle, or Akshay Bhatia is a good example. He's a younger guy. He is tall, skinny. His legs are the size of my wrists, and the guy hits the ball a mile. And he's able to do that because while he hasn't built up a ton of muscle, traditional muscle, he's got a ton of fast twitch muscle fibers, which aren't going to show quite as well, but are really important to athletic performance. And when we're swinging a golf club, every swing is a max effort, explosive movement, like a jump, like a slam, like a sprint. And so what we're trying to do, if we want to hit the ball further and better, is figure out how to generate force and generate force quickly. And so doing a deadlift or a barbell squat isn't going to train the muscle in a way to have the ability to do that. So these fast twitch type movements where we're focused more on speed, explosivity, those are going to give us the skills that we need and develop the right type of muscle such that we can perform better on the golf course.
Yeah, and for these explosive movements, because they're so intense, these are actually exercises that you usually see relatively low rep ranges on. Generally 10 or less is how I'll prescribe them, because they are very violent, explosive movements where you are giving max effort for a very short amount of time. So, whether it is, some med ball throws, or some, box jumps or whatever it is, broad jumps at the end of a workout, or sometimes if I want it to be the focus, it all depends on how you want to emphasize those exercises. So it's something that you can put at the beginning of your workout if you want it to be the emphasis, or if you just want a really nice burnout at the end of a workout, you can place them at the end. But making sure that you are doing some sort of plyometric movement most days when you're in the gym is going to have a huge impact on those fast twitch fibers.
That's an incredibly important point, because I think a lot of people may listen to this and think what we're saying is swap out your 4 by 8 to 12 barbell back squat for 4 by 50 box jumps.
Right.
And that is not the case. You should train the box jump like you train the back squat.
Yes.
You should do 4 by 6 to 12 tops, 10, probably less than 10 to your point. And you should do those 10 explosively, and you should rest for 2 minutes in between before you go back and do another set. This isn't high-intensity circuit type training. This is really intentionally focusing on training those fast twitch, speed, power focused movements. So if you're listening to this and thinking to yourself, maybe I've got basic muscle and I want to leverage that framework to figure out how to make it more suitable to the upcoming golf season, you can look to something like a barbell back squat and go ahead and swap that out with something like a box jump. But don't treat it like some cardio or high intensity interval training. Keep the rep range in that probably 3 to 10 range, and you're not going to be as sore or maybe not even feel like you've worked out in the same way, but you are building really critically important muscle fibers that are crucial to performing on the golf course, on the pickleball course, in life in general, as it relates to feeling faster, younger, healthier.
Yeah, and personally, I wouldn't just straight swap them out. I would still be doing those barbell back squats or whatever your squat variation is, leg press, trap bar, deadlift, doesn't really matter. We'll talk about, the like other lower body stuff in a little bit. But, it's not, for me, it's not about replacing with a plyometric move. It's adding in those power moves. But when you do that, you need to make sure that you are dialing back the intensity on those other lower body moves. You are not going to be squatting the same that you were if you're going to be trying to do some high intensity box jumps or, depth jumps, whatever it is alongside of it, because they're, even though it might not necessarily feel like the same type of intensity or exertion, if you are doing a, full effort box jump, jumping as high as you possibly can, it's exhausting, and you need to make sure that you are modifying the rest of your training to make sure that you're not overdoing it.
Yeah, the reason I say swap is I don't want people to start overtraining. So you're right. A good way you can do this is through like contrast sets. So if you're currently programmed for 4 sets of heavy squats, do 3 sets of heavy squats in a squat of box or in a set of box jumps, or 2 sets of heavy. I'm with you. I wouldn't throw out the heavy squats altogether, because building that muscle is still important. But contrasting it, supplementing with some of this more explosive stuff will be really beneficial, so long as it's not only additive and now you're getting yourself into the world of overtraining.
Yeah, or if you're doing something like, if you are on your 3-2-1 shit and you are strength training 3 days, let's say you're doing a full body split, you're doing 3 full body days. One of those days you can just make it a plyo day, so you're still doing your strength training, your traditional strength training on those other days, but then you have one dedicated day to doing plyos. That's one way that you can handle it. So
just to reiterate some of the things you can do to focus on power, the med ball slams and throws are really important. Jump squats, kettlebell swings, the landmine type press work, all that is going to give you the ability to work through more of those explosive movements.
Oh, and I mean, but in all kinds of jumps too, though, box jumps, broad jumps. I think broad jumps are super underrated. I've been doing them more, on, Quest to Dunk 2025. Been doing a lot more broad jumps, and, things like depth jumps where you're actually stepping off of a box and then reacting to the ground. I think that jumping is one of those things that you do a shitload as a kid, and then you start to take it for granted. You do less and less of it as the years go on, and then all of a sudden, you meet with a trainer, or you show up to pick up basketball, and you think about the last time that you actually jumped, and you can't remember.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that you got to treat it like the skill that it is, but it's something that we should be doing, all kinds of jumps regularly. The next major category that I think is super important for golfers is core. Obviously the core is what connects the lower body to the upper body. It is, how we transfer force from our lower body to the upper body. And what is a golf swing but the transfer of force from your legs up, through your shoulders and into your hands, through the club. So your core, if it is not strong and mobile, it is going to have a really hard time. You could have the strongest legs in the world, and you are going to have a really, really, really hard time making good contact with a golf ball.
Yeah, and it's not just crunches. You really want to be focused on rotation, and especially anti-rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So a golf swing is not just motion, but resistance of motion. So when you're swinging the golf club, what you're really trying to do is generate some torque. And torque requires sort of opposite forces, right? So as you take that golf club back and start to swing it down, that lower body is effectively going to be resisting motion to create the leverage such that as that club comes through, it generates that torque and that power. And so that's a learned skill. You're not going to achieve that just by trying to get abs, right? You have to be doing things that are anti-rotation focused, like a pal-off press is a great one. I do a lot of those in the golf season with a resistance band where you're sort of resisting with your core rotation. Things like carries, things like side planks are going to be really, really effective, very functional type core exercises that will be beneficial to the golf swing itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that, again, we mentioned the landmine rotations earlier, but, it is just anything that you can do as far as, just rotating and then resisting that rotation, it's going to be huge. And I like that thought of getting out of that box of thinking about the core as our six pack. Our core is this global set of muscles that wraps all the way around our entire body, goes through, through our middle, all the way through our back. So, it's one of those things that once you start treating it as that full system, it really can unlock things for people. I also think it's a spot where people carry a lot of tension, and we'll talk about mobility later, but I also think it's one of those sneaky spots that people need to stretch more, and that could have a profound impact on their swing as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the back. So the next category I want to briefly mention, we don't have to spend a ton of time on it, is the what I'll call the forgotten golf muscle. So people, when they think golf, they a lot of times think lower body, they think, arms, rotation, but the forgotten golf muscle is the lats.
Mm-hmm.
And the lats are this huge group of muscles in the back that are really critical to the golf swing, to generating power, and you need a good amount of flexibility and mobility in those lats to get to a position by which you've created enough separation and rotation to maximize the power as you come through that golf ball. And so doing things like pull-ups will help you to build muscle there. But things like hangs, things like windmills, really focusing on generating some stretch in those lats. So you want them to be strong, but you want to have that flexibility as well. Because a lot of times you see these golfers that have these kind of Tyrannosaurus Rex arm type swings where they aren't really creating that stretch in the lat. And that stretch in the lat is huge for generating power in the golf swing.
Yeah, so this is, kind of one of those advanced training techniques that I don't expect, many people to go out and try. But if you are looking to really bias that lat in a way that will benefit your rotational strength, reaching it across your body is going to be one of the best things you can do. So a single arm lat pull down where you're actually reaching up and across, grabbing that cable or machine, whatever it is, up so that it's even with your opposite shoulder, because what your lat wraps around the front of your rib cage, and as you pull that arm back, it is contracting, it's bringing that rib cage, that shoulder, and your ribs as a byproduct back towards the your low back. And so it's one of those things that we think about training the lats in one plane of motion. It's reach up, pull down, reach up, pull down, do that over and over again. But there is so much more to that muscle and the whole muscle system. So if you are just trying to get a little bit more of a novel stimulus, reaching across when you're doing anything, lat focused is going to, really, really help you out here.
And help you build that flexibility. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go watch any pro golfer swing the golf club and look at the stretch they get in the lat at the top of the golf swing. It is unbelievable. And that is where a lot of that power comes from. The next category here is around single leg and lower body strength. So we've talked about some of that lower body power type stuff, but single leg unilateral type exercises are going to be critically important as well. So another key component of the golf swing is balance. And these are going to transfer directly to building the balance required to swing the golf club well. So we're talking things like lunges, things like Bulgarian split squats, any split squat variation, things like step ups. If you have that box and you're doing box jumps, step ups can be really effective as well. So this single leg unilateral stuff, you see golfers doing it all the time, is going to be very beneficial to your golf game.
Yeah, we talk about how important unilateral training is just in general, but especially just from an efficiency standpoint. There is really nothing out there that gets the same bang for its buck as single leg, like lower body exercises. You can build so much strength and muscle, one leg at a time in a relatively safe manner, because you don't have to load it nearly as heavy as you would for a barbell back squat, leg press, RDL, trap bar deadlift, whatever you're doing. If you're doing, reverse lunges, split squats, Bulgarian split squats, step ups, like you said, even like hip thrusts, single leg hip thrusts, you can take a fraction of the weight that you were using and still have it, build muscle. But then also you get the added benefit here of that transfer of power and that, the postural stuff that is going to benefit your golf swing as well. So really, if I could only pick one thing, if I had to take this whole list and pick one thing, if you were going to change a golfer's game, I know that you were talking about mobility earlier. I would for sure just hammer the lower body strength, and I bet you it would change people's games profoundly.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that. The next category we have here is the mobility. And I stand by that. For the average weekend warrior golfer, if there was one thing I could prescribe to them, it would be to take the workout snack break, or every morning when they get up and every night before they go to bed, to focus on mobility of the hips and mobility of the T-spine, and I may throw into kind of that T-spine world flexibility of the lat. It will transform your ability to swing the golf club. So prescriptively, what this can look like is as frequently as you can, because mobility is all about frequency. You can't really overtrain it, so do it as much as you can. I'd be doing 90-90 complexes to focus on the hips. I'd be doing deep squat type hold stuff, even just by your desk, holding onto the desk, sitting in that deep squat position. I would be doing windmills. And I would be doing not only like toe touch type windmills for mobility, I would be training windmills with a dumbbell for strength as well, really getting strong in that movement as well. This won't only be helpful for the mobility required to swing the golf club well, but will also be important for injury prevention, because, like I said before, this isn't just a hobby, it is a sport. And I see more and more of my friends, as they get later into their 30s, getting shoulder injuries, elbow injuries, lower back injuries from the game of golf. So these are the types of things that will prevent those injuries and create the mobility required to swing the golf club better.
Yeah, if you're looking for one mobility exercise that will change your golf game and your life, just Google or go into YouTube, type in Kelly Starrett, Starett, couch stretch. You can type in couch stretch. Just make sure you put Kelly's name in there too, because he was the guy that pretty much made this household stretch, and his video is still the best one. But if you do that stretch and figure out, there's ways to progress it. If you do that stretch for 1 minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes on each side every single day, it is going to, if you have low back pain, it'll go away. It will be such a huge benefit to you. Because it really is just like such a profound movement. So I would do couch stretch for sure. 90-90s, everything that you said is good, but I think that couch stretch, because what it does is not only does it stretch out the quads, but it has such a big impact on your hip capsule, and how it can then, as a byproduct, help just loosen up some of those low back muscles. So I'm with you. I think that mobility is one of those things that is so underrated, just for any average Joe or Jane. just spending a couple minutes on it every single day and finding the things that your body needs to make it feel better. It's just such a good, insurance policy. But you also mentioned the injuries to like the forearm and the elbow and wrist and that kind of stuff, and this leads us really well into the next kind of like our last big category here, and that is grip strength. So things like farmer's carries, or even just like heavy back work too. Like if you're doing heavy rows, this is going to be testing your grip. But you see a lot of those like shoulder down, shoulder, elbow, wrist injuries, and a lot of times it's just because you are straining muscles that aren't getting used all that often. Things that sit on the shelf for how many months out of the year, and then all of a sudden, you call on them to go and play 18, and yeah, no kidding, your elbow freaks out a little bit. It's been dormant for the last 8 months.
Yeah, and with the grip strength, so the best golfers have really strong grip strength, but I think you see a lot of injuries in golf because golfers overgrip the golf club. So you wanna be like a strong man holding a baby bird when you hold that golf club. And
All right.
so you want to
Yes,
have
sensei.
that strength, but you got to know how to use it. And so training, it's going to help with that injury prevention, but also knowing how to use it and leverage it in the golf swing is really important. So all of the things we talked about already are going to be key for injury prevention, for better mobility, for more youthful kind of use of the muscle that you have. But there are specific things you can do to train that grip, like carry type work. You and I are both big fans of farmer's carry, suitcase carry type stuff. The pull-ups, the pull-up bar hangs, those sorts of things will be really important for grip strength as well, and it is an important thing to train.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so we've really just kind of broken everything down into the major categories that we would focus on if, and this always has kind of had that golf focus. We mentioned at the top that this is going to be about pickleball too. I mean, really just substitute golf swing for pickleball swing, and all the same stuff applies. The only thing is that pickleball is going to require a little bit more agility, so you're going to want to put a little bit more focus on footwork. Honestly, I would just add a little bit of jump rope to everything that we said, and you're going to be just fine.
Maybe a little more cardio. I think that there's a bit more cardio required for, well, obviously for the game of pickleball than there is for the game of golf. But
yeah, but if you're playing it regularly, because you're right.
True.
Like
Yeah.
you're right. If you are training, if you have your off season, but if you're in season, if you're playing 3 times a week, pretty competitively, you're probably getting your cardio that way. If you want to add more, fine. But yeah, I would just like do all this stuff. And I think, honestly, like jump rope is one of those things. It's not going to hurt, it's not going to hurt a golfer either. So, I think all this stuff translates to any of those rotational sports. But, I think it's important to, we talked about, still doing your lifts. We talked about some of the specialty stuff that you can do. But, you just want to make sure that you are prioritizing your strength training, that you're not turning into a cardio king and queen. You need to make sure that you're staying powerful. And while the intensity needs to be, really nice and high for a lot of the training, especially if you're going to be competing, if you're going to be playing, golf like you, Dylan, like if you're playing multiple times a week, if you're playing pickleball multiple times a week, your training might have to adjust itself to make sure that you're still able to perform at a high level. Because we're not in bodybuilder season anymore. This is performance season. So you got to make sure that that your training is benefiting your performance, and it doesn't, they don't start hurting each other because you're trying to do too much.
Yeah, I lived this last golf season. For like the first half of golf league season, I was just lifting too much and not saving enough for the golf course. And it's easy to do because you don't really think of golf as this physically demanding sport. But anybody who gets off the couch and goes hits a bucket of balls or goes and plays 18 holes will tell you they're weirdly sore in places that they've never felt before. So you're right. Start to think about your training in season as supplementary to the other things that you're passionate about during that season. And then when it gets cold out again and you're not playing as much golf, you can go ahead and train like that bodybuilder or give more focus to some of that other stuff. So it's not to say stop lifting. You should lift, but the lifting that you're doing should be complementary to the other things, because it can easily and quickly become adversarial to your success on the golf course, pickleball court, any sport you're playing.
Yeah. I would be, before we wrap up this conversation, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up, one of the things that grinds my gears a little bit in the fitness space. It's these like uber golf specific like training regimens. You know what I'm talking about? Like there's the one, it's like the big yellow stick that you put weights in, and then it like measures how fast you're swinging the stick.
So that's let me correct you there a little bit. So
okay, Dylan.
That's the stack system, and that's specifically for speed training. And it's proven to be very effective. So, like I said before, the golf swing, and this is where we start. If we're talking about how to hit the golf ball further, we have to figure out how to generate more speed in said golf swing. So something like the stack system can really help a person do that. Another way you can do it, so this is maybe a little bonus tip. If you want to hit the golf ball further, go to the driving range, hit a bucket of balls, and swing that golf club as fast as you can. Not as hard as you can, as fast as you can. Think about what you can do to move that golf club through the impact zone as quickly as possible. Don't give a shit about where the golf ball goes. Just try to swing it faster and faster over time. And then take that back to the round or to the more focused training session where you're trying to hit the golf ball better, straighter, and you'll see that speed start to show up. And that's how the stack system actually works. And I haven't used it personally, but I do know from friends, from people that play golf, from some of the communities that I follow, that it actually, I can see how from a non-golfer it looks very silly as a training tool, but can be very effective.
No, I understand its effectiveness. What I have a problem with are the people that replace their 3 days of strength training with 3 days of twirling their fancy little stick around.
It's not fair, but speed training is important if you want to hit the golf ball further. So
understood, but you're gonna get more out of, and it maybe if we're just strictly talking about swing speed, that is one thing. But if we're talking about benefiting your life in all the ways, you're going to get more out of strength training. And then, like you said, I love the tip, go to the range and just freaking hit balls, because you're going to be outside. It's going to be more enjoyable. If you are trying to become a professional golfer, obviously, and if you like it, if the swing stick, whatever you called it, is something that you really truly enjoy and it makes your life better, I'm not going to yuck your yum. But if you are somebody that is neglecting your strength training or your time on the driving range because of this silly little stick, because you're too busy playing with your stick, then you need to look at your priorities here.
You're right there. Yeah, it should be complementary to, it should be supplementary to the big rocks, which are all the things that we just said. So it's an effective tool, but it's not a replacement for the things we just said. If that's your point, I agree. Yes.
All right, cool. Let's bring it home here, Dylan. I love the Q&A, so I'll tee it up because obviously, if we were going to play 18 holes, we know how that would end. There's no question there. That's your game, and it's not even close. But somebody wants to know who would win in and you can tell they're a noob because they say a game of pickleball, Dylan or Matt, but it's a match. So who would win in a pickleball match, Dylan or Matt? Dylan, we've had years and years of intense competition. We played one-on-one in lots of sports, lots of different ways. And, one game is anybody's game. Anybody's game. 7-game series, you don't stand a chance.
Oh wow. What are the Vegas odds?
Oh, my book maker's privileges have been revoked, so I
That's
don't
true.
think
You hit a tough
I don't
time.
think I'm legally allowed in the state of Wisconsin to make odds anymore.
I think I'd probably have you at like -120 on the money
That seems
line.
right.
I think in a 7-game series, I think I'd probably be like +110. But height and weight, please.
6'3", 235.
Okay, yeah, I'm 6'1", 185.
What?
So
Okay, yeah.
well,
If there's no weight classes in pickleball.
no, but that 185 is a little bit easier to move around that little court than that 235.
Oh yeah, for sure. But my wingspan
That's why the height matters. Yeah,
cover a lot of court.
You can cover a lot of court. Maybe we just have to take it to the court and find out. Have a match.
Yeah, I think we do have a match, and
you're gonna come down here in a couple weeks. Bring your paddle.
I'll bring my paddle. You guys probably, I don't probably need to bring my net. You probably have plenty of places with nets down there.
And if anybody wants to place a bet, you just heard the odds. Give us a shout at the Better Basics Podcast Instagram.
Okay, let's bring it home with the greatest podcast segment known to man. It is the I Lift a Sad Song of the week. Dylan, it is your song this week. I can't wait to hear. What do you got for us?
Going with a new song.
Oh, well, hold on. Actually, hold on. Before you say yours, I loved the last sad song you recommended, that Samia song, Lizard.
Yeah, dude.
Never heard it before then. It's a great song. So I wanted to thank you. I want to thank you on the podcast for introducing me to that great jam.
You're welcome. I want to thank you for introducing me to this artist. This is I'm on a new song thing, I guess. The ethos of this, the genesis of it was old songs we listened to in high school, but I keep finding new ones that I don't know, they seem to fit well into the season 2 playlist. This is by Ethan Tash.
Oh yeah.
You shared with me. It's a new song he's got called Everyone's a Bullet.
Oh, I don't know this one.
It's got some nice piano. And we'll cut it off before the words. Go listen to it yourself.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.